Part 45. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kge Now. Chapter 442. Len Ning's sharp eyes saw that Han Yu's white neck had many ambiguous marks printed on it. It was obvious that Sister Kui did not leave her idle. "What are you doing here? Why don't you salute the young lady and Lord Yan?" Sister Kui urged Han Yu. Yes. Han Yu trembled and quickly bowed in the direction of Len Ning and Yan Yu. Han Yu has met the young lady and met Mr. Yan, then she said softly. Yan Yu looked complicated. When she first came to Quanglan Base, Han Yu was very proud, but now she is so humble. "It's been so long since I walked in the door that I didn't even dare to look at them. Miss, I have brought you the person. Look." Sister Kui looked at Len Ning with a smile. Len Ning raised the corner of his mouth. He took out a bunch of banknotes from the space ring and threw it directly to Sister Kui. "It has nothing to do with you here, get down then," he said in a deep voice. When Han Yu heard this familiar voice, she felt something was wrong. But after staying in the Red Kill for a long time, she had already lost her courage, and she did not dare to raise her head to confirm her guess. Impossible. Len Ning is currently staying in the Thunder Base, living a life like a princess. How could he come here? A month ago, she was attacked on her way home. When she woke up, she was in this Red Kill. Sister Kui told her that she was sold. Unless she pays for her ransom, she will never be able to leave this place in her life. She didn't listen to her at all. She didn't believe her identity or her relationship with Teacher Zhang and the others, so she just forced her to accept the guests. She had no money, so she could only find a way to escape, but she tried several times but failed. The result of failure is to be tortured by Sister Kui. The punishment here does not hurt people's flesh, but it makes people unable to survive or die. In desperation, she could only agree to pick up the guests. "I want to communicate with the guests when I pick them up, and ask them to help contact Teacher Shang Zhang and others to save myself from the sea of suffering." She used her body to try her best to please the customers, hoping that because of her hard work, they would be willing to help her with messages or offer her more rewards. Unfortunately, she didn't know how many guests she had begged to, but no one helped her bring her words. She could only tell herself to hold on and be strong. Realizing that no one would come to save her, she had to find another way. Sister Kui said that the money for her ransom was 3,000 yuan, so she had to find a way to get this amount together as soon as possible. For this reason, she even took the initiative to ask Sister Kui to accept more customers, or to steal customers from others. She found that as long as she was willing to work hard and use clever methods, she could receive a few more customers a day. When she meets someone who is generous, she becomes serious and diligent. If she's stingy, she'll just deal with it. It was hard work, but over the past few days, she had saved more than 800, and she was not far from her goal of 3,000. Just now she was serving a generous guest, but Sister Kui suddenly knocked on the door and said there was something important. Then, Sister Kui apologized to the guest, arranged for someone else to accompany him, and brought her over. Sister Kui said that two distinguished guests wanted to see her and asked her to behave well. She was actually used to this. After the end of the world, human beings are under great pressure. The men who come here not only vent physically, but also mentally. Not to mention two people looking for her together, she has also encountered 3 people. Although the process will be miserable and you may even get injured, these people will also give you the most rewards. She was a little angry at Sister Kui for giving her big client to someone else, but she lost her anger after hearing the news. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kge Now. Chapter 443. Now she only wants to make money, and she is not afraid of hardships and tiring. When she learned that the 2 customers Sister Kui mentioned were a man and a woman, she was very surprised. After coming to Hanzhou for so long, the women who came in were not without customers, but they were all sold as JVS. This is the first time that a woman has stepped into this place as a guest. And judging from Sister Kui's appearance, those two people's identities are indeed extraordinary. For this reason, she also had some expectations in her heart. I made up my mind to do my best to serve them well later. Maybe she can get a reward tonight. After entering the house with Sister Kui, she understood the importance of superiority and inferiority and acted like a little white rabbit. Who knew that the guest's voice was similar to Len Ning's? Thinking of Len Ning, her heart was filled with resentment. They all come from the same lower class, so why are their circumstances so different? She is the daughter of the Lei family and is loved by all. But she was the adopted daughter of the poor and looked up to others. Even if it was the end of the world, there were so many people around her helping her, and she even returned to the Thunder base to continue being her little princess. But what about her? She finally followed Teacher Zhang to the Quanglan base. She was doing an ordinary job, but suddenly something unexpected happened and she ended up in this purgatory-like place. No, she has to find a way to get out of here. How could her Han Yu's life be like this? Sister Kui smiled and bowed to Len Ning, then turned around. Serve Mr. Yan and Miss well, he warned Han Yu threateningly as he looked at her. Yes, 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 Han Yuepi hurriedly said. Sister Kui had a smile on her face and walked towards the door. The room was quiet. It wasn't until Sister Kui went out and closed the door that Len Ning looked at Han Yu more and more wildly. Feeling Len Ning's scrutiny, Han Yu didn't dare to move, feeling uneasy. I lost a lot of weight. After a long while, Len Ning finally spoke. Han Yu was shocked and finally looked up at Len Ning. Seeing that familiar face, Han Yu felt a sting in her eyes, followed by ecstasy. Ning Ning, is it really you? Han Yu smiled and ran towards Len Ning. Just when she was 1 meter away from Len Ning, a sharp wooden thorn suddenly appeared and touched her chest less than half an inch away. As long as Han Yu moves forward half a minute, the wooden thorn will pierce her chest. Han Yu was so frightened that she was shocked on the spot. Looking at Len Ning again, he found that she had a look of disgust on her face, and her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Han Yu's body started to tremble whenever she dared to move again. Ning Ning, what are you doing? She tried her best to smile in a flattering way, but Han Yu's smile looked uglier than crying. I reminded you before, just call me by my name. Len Ning looked unhappy. Then he controlled Xiaoman and grew more sharp thorns, which even penetrated Han Yu's thin clothes. Because the force was well controlled, it only just touched Han Yu's skin and did not hurt her. Han Yu didn't dare to move. She glanced at the large number of spikes in front of her and didn't dare to breathe. Then, with a sound of tearing, Han Yu's clothes were torn and suddenly fell to the ground. Ahem! Yan Yu almost choked and quickly looked away. When Han Yu heard the voice, she remembered that besides Len Ning, she had also seen Yan Yu just now. Thinking that there were still old male classmates in the house, Han Yu felt less afraid. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 444. Because at this moment, my body was red, but I was filled with other emotions. Not all men are the same, she has learned a lot after being here for so long. Seeing Len Ning looking at him wildly across from him, Han Yu's fear diminished and she became more hopeful. No matter how Len Ning and Yan Yu found her, no matter what price she paid, she must leave here today. And right now, they were her only chance. Thinking of this, Han Yu also completely abandoned her sense of shame, and her expression became enchanting and frivolous. Yes, he is indeed capable of handling a dozen customers in one day. Len Ning glanced at Han Yu sarcastically. Who would have thought that the innocent and good girl in the class would become like this? Also, she was coquettish in her previous life. In this life, she just gave her a chance to realize her true nature in advance. Yan Yu was so embarrassed. I'm afraid that I will hear something more exciting next, and see scenes that I shouldn't see. Could it be that he thought wrong? Len Ning doesn't have a grudge against Han Yu, but... A strange feeling surged in his heart, and Yan Yu quickly stopped his random thoughts. Looking at Len Ning's condescending and sarcastic gaze, the shame in Han Yu's heart was awakened, making her crazy with shame and anger. Why are you looking at her like this? It wasn't her fault that she fell to this point. If she was willing to take her away, why would she be like this? She has always been fine, so why has she changed since the end of the world? He was no longer the idiot that she could manipulate and rub, but he was as sharp as a knife. Han Yu felt resentful and wanted to rush over and tear Len Ning to pieces on the other side, but she didn't dare to move at all. Len Ning, please help me. Han Yu suppressed the jealousy in her heart and humbly begged Len Ning. Then, he even slowly squatted down and knelt on the ground. It was my fault before. I shouldn't be jealous of you and slander you. For the sake of our sisterhood for many years, please, take me away from here. Han Yu started to cry as she spoke. Yan Yu, who was listening to this expression of true feelings, felt a little soft-hearted. Haha, okay, Len Ning sneered. Han Yu couldn't help but dodge her eyes, feeling frightened. She couldn't believe that Len Ning had just agreed to her. I know I was wrong, Len Ning, I really know I was wrong. Please give me a way to survive. I am willing to do whatever you ask me to do. Han Yu was extremely nervous and began to kowtow to Len Ning. Again and again, very hard, as if no pain was felt at all. Yan Yu's expression was complicated, and he couldn't bear to look at it any longer. Are you willing to do anything? Len Ning said with a dark smile. Yes, yes. As long as you can forgive me. Han Yu raised her head and smiled flatteringly at Len Ning. The originally fair and beautiful forehead was now stained with blood, and the whole person looked particularly embarrassed. In early winter, her upper body was no longer naked, and some bruises made her look like a madman. Okay, Len Ning was very satisfied with Han Yu's appearance. Hearing Len Ning's answer, Han Yu smiled and felt ecstatic in her heart. I will stay at Quanlan Base for 2 more days, and I will ask Sister Kui to take good care of you during these 2 days, Len Ning said with a smile. No, take me away. Take me away now. I will be obedient and never cause trouble for you. Han Yu's expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly knelt down and approached Len Ning. Xiaoman suddenly appeared again, preventing Han Yu from approaching. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 445. Facing the sharp wooden thorns, Han Yu did not dare to go any further. Seeing Len Ning's cold face, Han Yu finally seemed to remember something, turned around and knelt in the direction of Yan Yu. Yan Yu, help me. Please help me, begged Len Ning for mercy. Please. Because he was indecent at the moment, Han Yu kowtowed and did not raise his head, thus slightly covering up his current embarrassment. Yan Yu didn't have the nerve to look, so he turned his head away. I'm just accompanying Hall Master Len. She has just paid to buy you from Sister Kui, and your future is now in her hands. Ask yourself. He was the one who sent her here in the first place. He felt a little guilty towards Han Yu about this matter. But despite this, he wouldn't do anything for her. What's more, he hoped that Len Ning could deal with her as soon as possible. This is human nature. As long as Han Yu lives in this world for 1 day, when he sees her, he will think of the disgraceful thing he did. There is no airtight wall in the world. One day Han Yu learns the truth. Well, he really didn't want that day to show up. After hearing Yan Yu's words, Han Yu froze. Len Ning paid for her to buy her from Sister Kui? Han Yu was shocked at first, then angry, and then ecstatic. If Len Ning bought her, she would no longer be from this red kill, and she could leave with Len Ning. As long as Len Ning is willing, not only can she leave Hanjeo, but she can even follow her to the Thunder base. It's a paradise for survivors. Thinking of this, Han Yu's mentality suddenly improved. He turned around and knelt in Len Ning's direction again. Len Ning, thank you. You will be my master from now on. Then he knelt on the ground with a pious look. After hearing this, Yan Yu was a little shocked. This woman is really willing to give up. Len Ning glanced out of the corner of his mouth and looked at Han Yu as if he were looking at a clown. If Han Yu had seen this look before the end of the world, she would have planned revenge. But now, she has completely lost the idea of resisting, and just wants to try her best to wrap around Len Ning, the straw that can save her life. Please master, please take me away. From now on, I will be a cow and a horse, and I will definitely repay my master. Han Yu looked at Len Ning with a longing look on her face, as if Len Ning was her salvation. Stay here well. I will pick you up when I go back in 2 days. Len Ning got up from the sofa. He glanced at Han Yu with no interest, then walked away. Master Han Yu panicked and hurriedly knelt down to chase Len Ning. Len Ning finally stopped but didn't look back. Han Yu thought Len Ning had changed her mind and a smile appeared on her face. When you are my slave, you must first learn to be obedient, Len Ning said solemnly. The smile on Han Yu's face suddenly froze. He didn't dare to call Len Ning anymore, for fear of offending her or of her abandoning him. This time he didn't hear Han Yu's response. Len Ning raised a smile on his lips and walked towards the door. Yan Yu followed Len Ning out without even looking at Han Yu. Tell Sister Kui to arrange more men for her in the next 2 days. As long as they are not dead, she can do whatever she wants. The money earned belongs to her, Len Ning said with his back to Yan Yu. Considering Sister Kui's money-loving temperament, it's strange that she doesn't use such costless things. Yan Yu felt a chill in his heart. For the first time, I realized that the girl in front of me was so dark and terrifying. In the house just now, he almost thought that she would really take Han Yu away from Quanglan base, but now it seems that is not the case. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 446. Through him, she sent Han Yu to this pit of fire, and then came to see her again, destroying all her dignity. Then she gave Han Yu hope and asked her to continue carrying it and endure this inhuman torture. Who is Sister Kui? As long as he tells her to go there, what awaits Han Yu in the past 2 days will definitely be a life of purgatory. If you do this to a hopeless person, that person may choose to commit suicide. But now Han Yu is thinking about being out of the sea of suffering. No matter how painful it is, she will persevere. But when the day comes for Len Ning to leave Quanglan base, what will she do to her? Destroy the hope for Han Yu with your own hands? Or give her a good time? He felt it was most likely the former. Thinking of this, Yan Yu felt a chill running down his spine. Until now, he still hadn't figured out what the deep hatred between Len Ning and Han Yu was, and why he would do such a cruel thing to her. Before waiting for Yan Yu's answer, Len Ning turned back and looked at him. Yes. I'll make arrangements right away. Yan Yu clenched his fists at Len Ning, and then immediately walked towards a turtle slave not far away. I saw him giving a few instructions to the turtle slave, and then returned to Len Ning. When he saw the turtle slave, he glanced in his direction in fear and left in a hurry. Len Ning withdrew his gaze and looked into the room, with a cruel smile on his lips. Let's go then, he said lightly, turned and left. Yan Yu hurriedly followed. The two quickly left the Hongkil and walked on the streets of Quanglan base again. Master Len. Yan Yu hesitated again and again, but couldn't help but speak. Say. Len Ning glanced at Yan Yu, who looked struggling. What are you going to do with Han Yu? Yan Yu finally asked. He couldn't guess Len Ning's thoughts. Han Yu's entry into the Red Kill was arranged by himself. If she did not die this time and she learned the truth in the future, it would be a big trouble for him. A cruel smile appeared on Len Ning's lips. I'm not ready to kill him yet, then he said truthfully. Isn't it too easy for her to let her die like this? She hated Han Yu even more than Huo Xiao. All the sufferings she encountered in her previous life were all due to her. She would kill her, but before she died, she would return the pains to her one by one. The so-called murder and heartbreaking, Han Yu is not miserable enough now. She has already made some arrangements for this. Sooner or later, the Thunder Base will confront the Southern Army base, and Han Yu will come in handy. After all, this orphan girl is actually the illegitimate daughter of Han Feng, the leader of the Southern Army. And he is the only surviving descendant of Han Feng after the end of the world. In her previous life, she used herself to kill her mother and eldest brother, and in this life, she will pay them back in full. But don't worry. I will take her with me when I leave, Len Ning said after catching a glimpse of Yan Yu's expression. She has already arranged a place in Thunder Base and is just waiting for her master to return. Thank you. Yan Yu felt relieved after confirming that Len Ning really had no intention of reconciling with Han Yu. What do you think about Zhang Lin? Yan Yu then asked. There were too many people around Len Ning during the day, and he and teacher Zhang couldn't ask many questions. Len Ning's attitude toward Zhang Lin changed so quickly that he could hardly understand it. What does she mean? Do you really want to cooperate with Zhang Lin? Len Ning glanced at Yan Yu, with a hint of teasing in his eyes. Yan Yu subconsciously chose to dodge and lowered his head. The biggest purpose of my trip is to buy people. Zhang Lin can help me achieve what I want, so I naturally have to be friendly to him, Len Ning said with a smile. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 447. Yan Yu's heart sank. Teacher Zhang can't dash. Yan Yu did not continue. Teacher Jiang's status is not high, he has no real power, and his right to speak is indeed far inferior to Zhang Lin's. Teacher Zhang is so kind to my classmates. I always care about you. Yan Yu wanted to speak for Zhang Huai, but ended up saying this. Len Ning's lips raised slightly. That's why I'm more willing to cooperate with him, but he also has to recognize his current situation. If you don't have strength, you have to use other things in exchange. Then why did you deliberately become so close to Zhang Lin? Yan Yu felt a little more relaxed. Len Ning raised his eyes and looked at Yan Yu. The current cooperation is just the beginning. I want Quanglin to become an affiliated base of Thunder. Yan Yu was shocked and froze on the spot. Affiliated? Isn't that equivalent to being annexed? Not only Quanglin, but also other bases in City A. Sooner or later, Thunder will purify the entire City A, unite the major bases, and establish a unified safety zone, Len Ning said solemnly. Yan Yu's eyes flashed. Purify the entire City A? Establish a safe zone. According to Zhang Lin's temperament, he will not be willing to be inferior to others. Len Ning looked at Yan Yu and said, so, in the long run, Teacher Zhang is my most ideal collaborator. Only. Yan Yu looked nervous. It also depends on what Mr. Jiang's opinion is on this matter, and whether he can be of the same mind as our Thunder base. If not, there is no point in supporting him. After all, if it is just a simple cooperation, Zhang Lin is completely more powerful than Zhang Huai. Yan Yu was silent. I'll mention it to Teacher Zhang, he then said. The strength of Thunder Base is much higher than Quanglin's, and Mr. Lei is a very ambitious person. Perhaps, with his efforts, Cydia can really usher in the day when it is completely purified. A safe zone without zombies, just like the pre-apocalyptic environment. If it could really be created by their own hands, I believe Teacher Zhang would not refuse. Next, if Quanglin joins the Thunder Base in the future, under the protection of the Thunder Base, even if the safe zone cannot be built, it will be enough for the Quanglan base to stand firm and even grow in this apocalyptic world. During this period, both Teacher Zhang and them will have opportunities to show their talents. Len Ning smiled and nodded. I'm here, you can send me here. Then he looked at the gate of the city lord's mansion in front of him. Okay. Hall Master Len, please go slowly, Yan Yu said quickly. Yeah, Len Ning walked towards the door. Yan Yu stood there and waited until Len Ning entered the city lord's mansion and disappeared at the door before turning and leaving. But after just 2 steps, I met someone. Teacher Zhang. Yan Yu was startled. Some couldn't believe that they met Zhang Huai outside at this time. Teacher Zhang has been waiting here? Or follow them all the way? Thinking of the latter possibility, Yan Yu's face turned pale. Follow me. Zhang Huai glanced in the direction of the city lord's mansion and said to Yan Yu in a low voice. Then he took Yan Yu to an inconspicuous shop on the street. This is a restaurant, the place is small, and there are no customers at this time. Seeing the 2 people arriving, the boss smiled and said hello to Zhang Huai, and it seemed that they had known each other before. As soon as they sat down, the boss brought 2 bowls of hot soup. Steaming hot with a light fragrance. It's cold, so drink to warm yourself up. Zhang Huai picked up a bowl on his own and motioned with his eyes to Yan Yu to use another bowl. Thank you, Teacher Zhang. Yan Yu was not polite and picked up another bowl of soup. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Qi Now. Chapter 448. Soon, Zhang Huai drank the soup in his bowl and looked at Yan Yu. Yan Yu put down the empty bowl in embarrassment, not knowing what to say. Ahem, Teacher Zhang, why were you there just now? Yan Yu finally spoke. There was a flash of fluctuation in Zhang Huai's eyes. I looked at the city lord's mansion when Len Ning came out. When did you make an appointment with her? Zhang Huai asked. Yan Yu's face suddenly became nervous. Just before. You, following us. Zhang Huai immediately looked at Yan Yu, showing no emotion. Yan Yu's heart was beating wildly and he told himself to resist. Maybe he was just overthinking it. Teacher Zhang definitely didn't find out about Han Yu. No, I just came here and waited for you to come back, Zhang Huai finally said. The tension on Yan Yu's face instantly diminished, and his heart relaxed. What's your relationship with Len Ning now? Zhang Huai looked at Yan Yu with a smile, with a hint of concern that only an elder could have. Yan Yu was stunned and suddenly realized what Zhang Huai meant, and his face turned a little red. Just friends. You think too much then, he said. The young master was here during the day, and there were some things I couldn't say. So I made an appointment with her, and after the young master left, we walked around the street and had a chat. Oh, Zhang Huai smiled, with a hint of inquiry in his tone. Really? Zhang Huai said quickly. Len Ning said that when she comes to Quanglan for this trip, the person she wants to cooperate with the most is you, Yan Yu said directly. Prevent Zhang Huai from continuing to doubt and explore himself. Teacher Zhang was the person he respected the most and the person he decided to follow. He had to tell him and persuade him in advance about this matter. A flash of light flashed in Zhang Huai's eyes. It's just that there are conditions for her cooperation, Yan Yu continued. What conditions? Zhang Huai's face was serious, and he no longer had the gossipy heart just now. She wants Kulan to become a subsidiary of Thunder Base. Zhang Huai's face suddenly darkened. Not only Quanglan, but also other bases in City A. Mr. Lei wants to unite all bases to gather strength to purify City A and create a safe zone. Yan Yu looked at Zhang Huai excitedly. Zhang Huai's expression changed slightly, his eyes darkened. Master Lei has arms, and Len Ning can provide enough food. With the joint efforts of all the superpowers in the base, this may be achievable, Yan Yu said to Zhang Huai, eagerly hoping that Zhang Huai would agree to Len Ning's request. This time Len Ning comes to Quanglan, buying people is only one thing. The second thing he wants to do is to win over you. Yan Yu looked at Zhang Huai with burning eyes. If sooner or later we will be annexed by the Thunder Base, the result of our initiative will be different. Zhang Huai suddenly looked at Yan Yu. The look in his eyes was so sharp that Yan Yu immediately shut up. After a long while, Zhang Huai finally sighed. Why didn't she tell me these words in person? Then she said with some seriousness. What do you think, Teacher Zhang? Suddenly a female voice came from the door. It turned out to be Len Ning. Yan Yu was happy. Zhang Huai was shocked at first, and then quickly asked the boss to bring hot soup. Len Ning was not polite and walked to the table and sat down. Why are you here? Yan Yu pointed at the door and asked in surprise. Then he realized that what he said was not very respectful, so he shut up again. Why are these two people so elusive? So, did Len Ning say that to him outside just now? Because she knew that Teacher Zhang would talk to him soon, and he would take the initiative to persuade Teacher Zhang. Looking at Len Ning, who was smiling gently in front of him, Yan Yu felt fear again in his heart. So shady. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Qi Now. Chapter 449. Len Ning glanced at Yan Yu with a smile. The wood mutation type also belongs to the combat type. I have reached the 4th level of supernatural power. How can I still not notice that someone is watching? At this point, Len Ning glanced in the direction of Zhang Huai. Zhang Huai looked a little embarrassed when he heard the word peeping. I'm just worried that something will happen to you. I'll wait until you come back then, he explained sheepishly. Len Ning smiled and didn't take this matter to heart. Only a stupid guy like Yan Yu would believe this. At this time the shop owner brought hot soup. Len Ning was not polite and drank a large bowl directly. It's so late at night, it's nice to have a bowl of hot food, Len Ning said proudly, putting down the bowl. Zhang Huai and Yan Yu also laughed. The embarrassment just now dissipated completely. How about it? Can Teacher Zhang accept my proposal? Len Ning looked at Zhang Huai and went straight to the topic. Yan Yu also looked at Zhang Huai. The smile on Zhang Huai's face was stiff. Just when Yan Yu was frustrated and thought Zhang Huai was going to reject Len Ning, he heard Zhang Huai say, of course. Yan Yu's face lit up. Boss, give me another bowl of hot soup. Then he shouted into the store. How can one bowl be enough? 3 bowls, Len Ning shouted loudly. His face was full of smiles. Yes, 3 bowls, Yan Yu looked at the smiling Zhang Huai and responded twice. Okay, the boss's response came immediately from inside. However, we have to talk about the details, Zhang Huai said to Len Ning with a smile. Teacher Zhang, please speak, Len Ning said with a naughty smile. Seeing Len Ning's expression, the smile on Zhang Huai's face grew wider. I don't have real power in my hands now. Even if I want to cooperate with you, I'm afraid it will be difficult. Len Ning nodded. Haha, what's there to worry about? With Teacher Jiang's ability, it won't be easy to replace Zhang Lin then, he said with a smile. Looking at Yan Yu's cheerful and approving look, Zhang Huai's expression became a little stiff. Should I say it is an honor to be praised so highly by students? As long as you give the order, Teacher Zhang, I can cooperate with you. Len Ning's eyes suddenly turned cold and he made a kill gesture. Kill Zhang Lin. Anyway, Zhang Lin didn't have Shay Yin's thunder base in his previous life, so keeping him would be a disaster sooner or later. Yan Yu's eyes were startled. I admire Len Ning's change of expression so quickly. A moment ago he was smiling, playful and cute. The next second, he looked cold and shouted that he was going to kill someone. A wave of waves flashed across Zhang Huai's eyes. Zhang Lin is my eldest brother after all. Although he showed no mercy to me, I don't want to hurt him unless I have to, he then said. Once Zhang Lin died, he would be the only son of the city lord. It seemed that this was indeed the fastest and most effective way. But in fact it doesn't work. Although the city lord now firmly holds the position of the Lord of Raging Waves, the power of the second city lord and the third city lord cannot be underestimated. The reason why the situation in the Quanglan base is stable now is because, firstly, the city lord is there and he can suppress the second and third city lords. Secondly, as the heir, Zhonglin's mother clan is very powerful and has some unclear connections with the second and third city lords. They are also satisfied with Zhonglin. With the second city lord and the third city lord here, even if they really get rid of Zhonglin, things may not go as smoothly as Lin Ning thought. On the contrary, Quanglan may fall into pieces. Therefore, he did not agree with Lin Ning's proposal. Of course, it's not because he really cares about brotherhood, but because he needs time to develop his power. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Ki Now. Chapter 450. When he has enough power in his hands, Zhonglin can give way. Teacher Zhang, you think of him as your elder brother. He doesn't think of you as your younger brother, Yan Yu said angrily. I felt unfair for Zhang Huai. Zhang Huai smiled at Yan Yu, his eyes full of tolerant smiles looking at the junior. Lin Ning glanced at Yan Yu and thought he looked a little funny. He looks like a very smart kid, but he is coaxed so hard by teacher Zhang, an old fox. Their teacher Zhang, if he had been in the Three Kingdoms era, he would have been Liu Bei. Well, speaking from a modern perspective, calling him a white lotus is quite vivid. This metaphor crossed his mind, and Lin Ning couldn't help laughing. Zhang Huai noticed Lin Ning's expression and smiled. This girl is probably the only one who has seen through her in these years. Lin Ning was a little averse to the cold. The male white lotus smile. So what does teacher Zhang plan to do? Lin Ning put away those strange emotions and asked Zhang Huai. Because of your help before, the city lord intends to promote me to the top. I need you to continue to help. Zhang Huai also stopped smiling and said seriously to Lin Ning. This is simple. In the future cooperation between Quanglan and the vegetable base, I will still insist on only dealing with you and your people, Lin Ning said solemnly. I'm afraid it's not enough. Zhang Huai frowned slightly. Is there anything else I can cooperate with? Lin Ning didn't have any ink, so he simply asked directly. I will be responsible for arranging the immigration of Quanglan residents to Thunder Base this time, Zhang Huai said directly, and I also want to take the opportunity to go to Thunder Base in person and meet Mr. Lei. Lin Ning was slightly startled. Okay. But I also have conditions then, he said. Say, Zhang Huai frowned again. Among those who immigrated, arrange for me some people with wood-type abilities, Lin Ning said in a deep voice. Zhang Huai was startled. Having seen the prosperity of the vegetable base in the Thunder Base, all major bases actually want to cultivate their own strong wood-type superpowers. But so far the results have been minimal. Although a very small number of wood-type superpowers have reached the second level with the help of transparent crystal cores, they have never been able to reach the bottleneck of the third level. Moreover, the various vegetables that are most suitable for the second level wood-type superpowers are firmly controlled by the vegetable base. Even if the major bases have second level wood-type superpowers, they are not allowed to exert much influence. Usefulness. Currently, the second level wood-type superpowers in Quanglan's base can only spawn 2 crops, sweet potatoes and potatoes. Because of the small number of people and weak mental strength, the efficiency is very low. As for sweet potatoes and potatoes, these two materials are sold very cheaply at the vegetable base. Rather than letting the wood-type superpowers in the base spawn themselves, it would be more cost-effective for them to purchase them directly from outside. Of course, due to the limited quota given to them by the vegetable base, these wood-type superpowers can still help the base solve some problems. But it can only be regarded as a drop in the bucket. In short, after observation, everyone has basically determined that it is difficult to build a vegetable base by yourself. After all, the birth of a third-level wood-type superpower requires great opportunity. Not to mention a powerful 4th level wood type superpower like Len Ning. Without a strong 3rd level wood type superpower, it would be difficult to achieve mass production of vegetable crops. Without a strong 4th level wood type superpower, crops would not be able to grow, and the supply of vegetable crops would always be controlled by the Thunder base. Nowadays, major bases are short of materials, and the precious crystal cores are limited. The wood type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 451. Rather than investing the precious transparent crystal cores on these wood type superpowers, it would be better to use them elsewhere. Of course, this is actually a difficult decision to make. After all, the day food is in the hands of others, the day we will be controlled by others. But the current situation is such that survival is difficult, and there is still no concern for the moment, so how can one think about the future? The transparent crystal core can have an effect on both combat type and auxiliary type superpower users. It is the most valuable crystal core discovered by humans so far. Save the crystal cores for wood type superpowers and allocate them to healing or space type superpowers, or simply give them to combat type superpowers, which can play an obvious role. Especially those with space powers. In the case where space jade is obviously not enough, their role is very great. With only a small amount of colorless crystal nuclei, a space superpower user can advance from the 1st level to the 2nd level. As long as it reaches the 2nd level peak, the space of a space superpower can be comparable to the existing space jade. For this reason, many bases are now using transparent crystal nuclei to cultivate space-based superpowers. The space jade in their hands can be taken to the Thunder base in exchange for a large amount of supplies. Quanglan base is far more powerful than many bases, but they also face these difficulties. The tail is too big to lose, and resources are limited. Len Ning is right, the current violent tide really requires a strong man to cut off his wrists, abandon the burden, and move forward easily. Okay. However, those with wood-type abilities will have to pay extra, Zhang Huai said. Len Ning raised the corner of his mouth slightly. How about 3 times more supplies? I don't want supplies, Zhang Huai refused. Yan Yu looked puzzled. Don't want supplies? Len Ning's eyes were smiling. What does Teacher Zhang want? Although he was asking, he already had some guesses in his mind. Crystal Core, Zhang Huai spoke. It's impossible for the senior management to agree to give you a wood-type superpower. This matter is considered a private deal between us, Zhang Huai continued. A private deal means that the crystal core belongs to him. To grow, he needed money. The top management of Quanglan are too conceited, and they can do it if they are asked to give up on ordinary people without superpowers. It is absolutely impossible for them to give up the wood-type superpowers. Even if they have no intention of continuing to cultivate these wood-type superpowers for a long time. Yan Yu was shocked. Looking at Zhang Huai with a solemn expression, a strange feeling suddenly surged in his heart. Is this still their decent Teacher Zhang? Okay. Teacher Zhang, please make a price, Len Ning said happily. I can only give you wood-type superpowers within the 1st level. There are no more than 20 people. Each person will give me an additional 100 2nd level crystal cores, Zhang Huai said directly. The smile on Len Ning's face suddenly faded. It's really a lion's mouth. Now all the 2nd level and above wood-type superpowers in the Quanglan base are registered by the military. I can only give you those who are within the 1st level and rarely appear in public. I will do this in secret. In addition, for safety reasons, the number of people will not exceed 20. I have to take risks to do this, and the reward is not much, Zhang Huai continued. Okay, Len Ning agreed. As time passes in the end of the world, many zombies in Cydia have evolved to the 2nd level, and 2nd level crystal nuclei are no longer as scarce as before. Exchanging 1,000 crystal cores for 20 wood-type superpowers was not a loss for her. There is one more condition, Zhang Huai suddenly said again. Len Ning frowned. Teacher. Doing business, right? So good at bargaining. Zhang Huai said with a smile, the last condition.